And welcome to the Hannah Fillmore Show on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. So, we had a doubleheader against
Mhm,
Montevallo yesterday. Now, the first game seemed too little, too late.
mhm,
Y'all had two late runs to try
mhm,
and overcome a four-run deficit that
mhm,
Montevallo set, but it seemed that momentum came into the second game where
mhm,
y'all had 10 hits, 9 runs.
mhm,
What was said in between those games to like carry that momentum that y'all had late to capitalize in the
mhm.
next game?
You know, one of the conversations we did have in between the games was really, I told the girls, I was like, at some point, like we're so close, we have all the talent in the world, we're so close, but at some point we have to hate losing. You have to take it personal and you have to do something about it. Can't keep doing the same things over and over again. So we really talked about, you know, we got to make adjustments sooner in the game. We had a little trouble adjusting to their pitching early on. Their first pitcher was coming in and up a lot, so we popped out a lot. We talked about making adjustments, into the ground, making them make plays.
Mm.
And yeah, I told him, I was like, something's got to change. I was like, we have to hate losing really,
Yeah,
really bad.
took that personally.
Yeah, they did, and they did make adjustments. So.
Awesome. Yeah. So, another thing that we talked about last week
Mm-hmm.
that you seemed that kind of made you frustrated was leaving runners on
Yep.
base. You had 9 of them or 6 or 9 of them against Mobile in that
Mm-hmm.
last game, but this one, those numbers were lower. You got
Mm-hmm.
runs across.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there are also some errors that were made by Montevallo's defense.
Mm-hmm.
How could y'all capitalize on those moments to, build up that lead in the second game? And um, how did y'all do that
Yeah.
basically? And
Yeah. So the last couple weeks at practice, we've really focused on being selfless in the box. And really, so our main goal going into Montevallo was getting runners in scoring position and then being really selfless and doing whatever it takes to move those runners in, whether it's bunting, whether it's taking the ball right side, whatever it may be. And I think they've done a really, really great job of that. So especially, just made adjustments late in the first game, but the second game, I mean, we absolutely capitalized on every single one of their mistakes. We put the ball in play, forced them to make plays. I think just getting runners on base in general always gets in the pitcher's head a little bit.
mm,
They were struggling to throw strikes. Catcher was struggling to keep pass balls from happening. And yeah, we had runners on and made them make errors. That pressure just adds a lot to the defense, and
mm,
then they carried over to the offensive side. Yeah, so it was a good win.
awesome. So, talk about the pitching performances that you saw between the two girls, Emma
Mm-hmm.
Curry, Lauren Glass. Curry, she went down early. Those 2 runs in the third, and then one fourth, one fifth.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like she never lost her confidence or composure, or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
may be.
Mm-hmm.
And then Glass came in second game, didn't give up any runs.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see from each girl that
Mm-hmm.
in those games? Different situations, but how did
Yeah.
you feel like they pitched in those games?
Yeah, the pitchers do a great job of communicating with each other because right now we do not have a pitching coach. So we've all talked about being open and honest with each other, and the pitchers communicate and the catchers communicate in between innings. Let the other pitchers know what's going on, what they are hitting, what they aren't hitting. We communicate so I know what pitcher to put in next based on what their hitters are doing and what their hitters are seeing. So really just an honest communication between both sides. So Emma came in. I think she struggled a little bit early on here and there. I think her drop ball outside was a
Okay.
little was which I mean she was hitting her spots. Pitt said she was hitting her spots. Just unfortunate sometimes. Good hitters doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she didn't lose it. I mean, we probably walked a couple more batters than we should have. I might should have made a switch earlier than I did. But yeah, and then Lauren Glass came in the next game, threw him off balance for sure, and did a great job. So yeah, I mean, they work really hard. They do a great job. I'd say communicating. Pitt's doing an awesome job
Mm-hmm.
behind the plate, calling pitches, letting the pitchers know what they need to do different each time. The pitchers letting Pitt know, like, hey, I feel comfortable throwing this. I don't feel comfortable throwing that. So it's really all them. I can't take any credit for it. They've been doing a great job working really hard.
Yeah, so you'd say it's more of the pitching room, like
Mm-hmm.
all the other. Even though Rika, she pitches some. You
Yeah.
got Turk,
Yep.
Bethany. Them, you think like it's them together that are talking to each other and saying, hey,
Yep.
this batter's not hitting this well, or you're
Yep.
throwing this really well. I throw at that spot. So
Yep.
you say it's more like the team coming together
Oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah, the pitchers and catchers are also a team within the team,
Mhm.
and they help each other out a ton. So like we'll have other pitchers in the dugout doing charts, hitting charts too, and they're watching each other on the mound and like, hey, she's not throwing her changeup like this because she's not pushing off the mound or stuff like that. So they really do between innings help each other. So
Got you. So, on the same side of defense, in that, especially that second game, y'all kept them scoreless, but it was kind of a bend don't break. They, it seemed like every inning they had at least one person on base for Montevallo, but like you talked about how you were able to cause
hmm
pressure,
hmm
on Montevallo's defense with having multiple people
hmm
on base. In that same sentence, with when it's flipped on y'all, there's
hmm
someone on base, someone else is coming up. They may
hmm
have, scored the last game or hit a home run
hmm
the last game or whatever,
hmm
and they're coming up to bat. How do you feel like your defense, kept their composure in those
hmm
situations with either someone in scoring
hmm
distance or just someone on the base in general?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, Glass started that game, pitched the whole game, and did great. I think they might have had 5 hits against her,
Yeah.
no walks. She played solid defense herself. The defense played great behind her, and I think it's one of those things where there's always a cushion when you
Mhm.
have runs on the board.
Yeah.
It takes pressure off the pitcher, takes pressure off defense. You don't feel like every single move you make is going to make or break the game.
Mhm.
So I think just honestly having runs on the board made them just all relax. Glass, her game plan for was to get ground balls, and she absolutely executed. Defense played behind her, so yeah, I think they were playing loose because we were controlling the speed of the game for sure. So
Got you. So, like, when you start to take that control,
hmm
whether I've seen in just some past games where either they start to get up early and then it's starting to come back. So,
yep,
um, when you talked about it earlier, you said getting off to your hot start of your own or making adjustments earlier in the game.
yeah.
How important that is going to start to become, later in the season?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting right here into well, we have West Florida next week, but we're getting in a conference right after that. And I think just jumping on those teams from the beginning is really important.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what we did in the second game in Montevallo. I think they might have taken us for granted a little bit, and we jumped on them
Yeah.
and forced them to make plays. And that's exactly what our game plan is going to be for conference, going into conference, is jumping on them, making them make plays, putting pressure on the pitchers, putting pressure on the
Mhm.
defense, making them carry that over in offense. So, yeah.
Got you. So, before we start talking about what's ahead, um, how have you seen this team come together? This first part of the season, you haven't faced the easiest competition. You've played some teams GSC, some
Mhm.
teams out of state. How have you
Mhm.
seen them adjust to that pressure, and just really how have they come together as a team in the early part?
Yeah. So I think playing those good teams really let us see our holes and
Hmm.
what we needed to work on. And ever since then, the girls have been working really, really hard, and we've made adjustments. Even in the first game against Montevallo, um, we it doesn't really show statistically, but we did a lot of things better that we had been working on as
Hmm.
far as communication, balls hit in between, not letting those balls drop, just hitting our cuts, being where we're supposed to be, all those things. So the girls, each game, I've seen them really progress, and there's been a lot of positives from what we've been working on. Um, and honestly, we're starting to really play as a unit.
Hmm.
We talk about all the time, I mention it like a volleyball team. The volleyball team defensively moves together, they
Hmm.
move as one.
Gotcha.
And so we've been talking about moving as one. Communication has been, I talk about it all the time, but it has been such a big deal for us.
Hmm.
And I think just getting more comfortable with who we're playing beside, having confidence in them, having each other's back, knowing each other's range, knowing each other's arm, all those types of things.
Hmm.
So that has been really, really important, and that has really made them bounce back. This is the team I saw yesterday is a whole new team than the first
Yeah.
weekend, and that's all we could ask for is to be better later than when we start. So
Got you. All right. Well, we'll start to talk about West Florida when we come back. You're watching the Hannah Fillmore Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel.
This is the way down a path that leads to a place upon the hill, led by thought leaders, activists, and Jesuit princes. Among the hill is where tradition and a strong desire to do and achieve reside. Ingrained in rich tradition, filled with purpose, fueled by passion. Spring Hill College is for those who seek more.
Welcome back to the Hannah Fillmore Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. So we got a set of home games coming up next week, midweek against West Florida, actually. next Wednesday, and then you start conference play against Miles on Saturday and Sunday. So right now the Argonauts are 6-6, and they just went. They won one, lost two against team who y'all just played against, Montevallo. So how does that kind of speak to the talent level of the team and how y'all are able to compete with teams that are at a higher level in such a competitive conference?
Yeah, I mean, they have all the talent in the world, and I preach that to them all the time. I think they just have to believe it. And when they get more comfortable playing with each other and, getting a win like we did 9-0 against a team like Montevallo, I think it gives them that confidence they need to go into a West Florida game. They're both great teams. I think it's about who shows up, and I think confidence plays a huge role in that, and they'll be at our place. So I feel really good about it. The girls feel really good about it. That's always a really great hitting team and a good rivalry for us. And so, yeah, we're excited.
Awesome. So in the doubleheader against Montevallo, we saw, a different lineup card than usual, some people in different spots of the lineup. How does that, like, as a coach, being able to put different people in different positions of the batting order and seeing them thrive in, somewhere where they're not used to batting, they're like, oh, I usually go after her. Like, I'm so comfortable. Like, she communicates to me this way or whatever.
Yeah.
Just how are you able to adjust that lineup and see them succeed?
Yeah, not only, I've been preaching to them about leaving runners on base, but it's something for me and Randa to also look to, too. Like, we have to put them in a position to succeed. And so we've been moving people around this whole time as far as stats go, who's faster, who's not as fast, who hits deep sac flies to score runs, all those types of things. So I moved the batting order around. I think we're finally getting somewhere. We've been leading off with Jesslyn. She does a really good job of usually doing something. And then statistically, Mackenzie, Destiny Pitt, they've been doing great. And I messed with Rika yesterday because I put her in the 9-hole, and she has one of the best hitting games she's had all year. So just one of those things, moving people around till we figure out we've got something that, is really successful.
Gotcha. So we don't have a game until next Wednesday. How does keeping the momentum against like Montevallo and having that good energy going, how do you keep that throughout the week in practice? You're playing each other, you're learning different things of what you want to do for the next game. How do you keep that momentum?
Yeah, we talk a lot about, picking one thing from each game or one thing each day to get better at and focusing on that. Going into the West Florida game, I think pitching is going to be a huge thing for us. I looked at their stats this morning. I think they have 12 home runs already on the season, and they always swing the bat really great. And so pitching is going to be huge, but we talk a lot about keeping the ball in the park and just trusting your defense. So spinning the ball, hitting a spot, and just making the routine plays. So focus on that all week, and I think they feel pretty good about it. They are always excited to play West Florida. So,
Got you. So with conference play coming up, after that West Florida matchup, what area of the game do you still feel like do you need to be polished to feel comfortable going into the conference play, or are we still learning and still just trying to make adjustments?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is keeping the errors to a minimum. Like I just said, pitchers trusting their defense, keeping errors to a minimum, and really just being selfless in the box. Conference is really no different than the games that we've been playing. There's just a little bit more pressure on them. Kids are usually faster, they're aggressive. So, yeah, I mean, same old same as all the other games.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Coach. This has been the Hannah Fillmore Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. Make sure you tune in next week.